Welcome to Catskills Commerce. I'm Ray Pucci.
And I'm Lillian Browne.
And together we work with the Delaware County Chamber of Commerce, where I am at least honored to work with the most optimistic and energized people I know, business leaders and business owners all across Delaware County and the Catskill Mountain region. And together we help move our local economy forward. The Chamber believes that healthy communities start with healthy businesses. We support our entrepreneurs by advocating for public policies that create an environment in which private enterprise may thrive. We promote our region as a great place to visit, to live, to learn, to work, and to play. We create programs that enhance our communities and improve our quality of life. We believe in collaboration, and we believe that the surest way to success is a partnership among business, government, community groups, and education that is mutually beneficial and based in respect, trust, and honesty. Finally, the Chamber believes in the potential of this region, our residents, our institutions, and all who call this special place home, or who have an interest in our collective success. Pretty simple, folks, but that's the message, that's the purpose. That's why we're here every other Friday afternoon, to continue to spread the news that we remain a vibrant and diverse place here in the Catskill Mountains of New York State. Well, thanks for joining us this afternoon. And I mean us. Lillian Browne is with me here in the WIOX studios this afternoon. Many of you know Lillian. She's been on the program before. Lillian is the program manager at the Delaware County Chamber. We are the staff. This is, you're listening, we have the entire Delaware County Chamber of Commerce staff here in one location. And what we're going to do, what we're going to talk about, it's really just going to be a conversation here for the next 50 minutes or so. We're going to take a look at some of those stories, some of the issues that really predominated, what am I saying? That were important during 2021. Dominated the news. Thank you. Oh dear.
And now you know what my role is at the Chamber, is to keep Ray on track.
Absolutely. And we're going to take a look too at some issues that will continue to dominate the news here in 2022. So Lillian, I guess, as we look at 2021 and talk about some of the big stories of 2021 as they affected business here in Delaware County and the Catskill Mountains and in New York State, and to some degree nationally as well. We got to start our conversation, I guess, with COVID and the government reaction to COVID.
Yeah, this has been in the news, not just nationally, but also locally. And there seems to be a lot of confusion among our elected officials, but also in the business community because of inconsistent information that is coming from various sources. Seems that the governor does not agree maybe with some of the things that the CDC is putting out. Our state health department is not always communicative with our local county health departments, and there seems to be a lag of information. And we've been on top of that, providing our business members as much information as we possibly can in a timely manner.
Well, yes, we have been. And let's start with some of those inconsistencies, because we certainly have seen that from the Center for Disease Control. Most recently, out of the window goes the 10-day isolation or self-quarantine Now we're into, now it can be a 5-day from when your symptoms come, and as long as you test negative, you can return to work. But so last Friday, I was on a call with our congressional representative, with Antonio Delgado, and one of the things that the congressman asked, I'm part of a small business advisory group that he put together a few years ago, and we meet quarterly, at least quarterly, sometimes more during this pandemic, more often than that. And the purpose of this group, there's probably about 20 plus of us in that group. It's his way of making sure that he remains connected to different constituents. Our case is that small business. There's one he has for farming and agriculture. He has another one for veterans, and I'm sure he has others as well. But one of the things that he talked about was the problems of those inconsistencies from the CDC.
Which translates into costs.
And we had a couple small business owners, or not so small business owners, in the group who were on the call, and they talked very frankly about those costs, that when we go from requiring testing for everybody, and then, well, no, you don't have to test, you have to do this, and as you pivot from A to B to C to D, and there's costs associated for that compliance, the group was very clear with the congressman about what that cost of compliance is. And one of the things that he talked about, he said, he's struggling, I think, to develop his own personal position on this, and he asked for stories. He said, tell me those stories where those CDC inconsistencies have translated into costs, and or translated into whatever, what impact has that had on businesses? And we talked about the inability sometimes of businesses just to open because of a lack of staff, because of what the current CDC rules are. So we have a plea. We're asking folks who are listening to us today to tell us those stories. We'll communicate those. We'll relay those stories to the congressman. If you don't want us to identify you, we won't. But we want to hear those stories about how those inconsistencies in policies with the CDC has affected your business, and how it continues to affect your business. And Lillian, what's the best way that folks can get a hold of us to do that?
Sure. So there are two different means of contact. The easiest and most efficient is via email, and the email address is info, that's INFO, at delawarecounty.org. Delaware County is one word, info at delawarecounty.org. Or please feel free to call the chamber and leave a voicemail, which I will check and take your information down. And our telephone number in Delhi is area code 607. Don't forget to dial that area code, 746-2281.
Terrific. And just to bring people up to speed, yesterday the Supreme Court ruled on
6-3
on the federal administration's attempt to use OSHA to the Occupational Safety something administration, administration.
Yes. Health, probably. Health.
No, probably
Okay.
Health or something like that.
I have a computer right here. We're going to look that up. Keep
Okay,
talking,
we'll come back to that.
Yep.
That mandated employers of 100 or more to require vaccine or tests on a weekly basis. And as you can imagine, the cost for those weekly tests, when someone was able to acquire them, was a significant increase in the cost of operating for a lot of businesses. And that was challenged in large part by our colleagues at the National Federation of Independent Businesses. Now, we're throwing around a lot of initials here already.
That's Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
Bingo! All right, thank you. And so that was defeated. So that doesn't seem at this point, and obviously it's less than 24 hours ago that ruling came down.
But it was not completely defeated, right? There is still a component with healthcare workers that are required to get their vaccines.
Or the weekly testing.
Or the weekly testing.
And that's because, and that applies to, well, effectively that applies to all the medical facilities out there, because those are the ones that are receiving federal funds.
Right.
So that's the difference. One is just you can't use OSHA for this purpose, but if there's federal funds involved that are coming directly through, they can shut off those federal funds to organizations that don't adhere to that. So we'll see what impact that has on any of the state mandates, and we're still in a excuse me, we still have a mask mandate,
which will be revisited by Governor Kathy Hochul on February 4th.
That's right. So right now, the New York State requires for entering a business or anything like that you have to, if you're indoors, that you need a mask. And let's, Lillian, let's talk about that. Let's really take that apart a little bit, because here in Delaware County, and a lot of counties across the state have said, we don't care what that mandate is. We're not going to enforce it. So that leaves the business owners in a really uncomfortable and unfortunate position where they're the cops. They're the ones who need to enforce that. And I've seen some businesses in Delaware County, we have the signs on our building, if you're coming in, please, we want you to wear a mask. Other businesses have declared themselves a constitutional business, and I'm not quite sure what that means, but no masks are required. Others say mask is required if you're not vaccinated, but of course it's a pinky swear because there's no one there to the checking cards. And
I think what this comes down to, Ray, is that we're really asking consumers, shoppers, customers to be mindful of the steps that our businesses are taking for customer safety.
Correct.
Be kind to those employees when you enter those stores, those gas stations, those grocery markets. They are simply complying with the mandate.
And there is a financial penalty that's
Right.
that's associated with that, with the governor's mandate. It's $1,000 to the business, not to the person who walks in who refuses to wear a mask, to the business of it could be as much as $1,000 per occurrence.
And here's where part of that inconsistent information it comes up. So we've read in local news reporting over the last week or two that Delaware County Public Health, and I'm not picking on them, we're not going to enforce the mandate. And, I'm hearing in the community a lot that mandates are not laws, and nobody has to follow them because they're not a law. And of course, our local government is has staff shortages, and they would not be able to enforce, they don't have the capability to enforce
Sure.
that. That said, it doesn't mean that there are not other organizations or agencies or offices out there who are
Excellent
not
point.
doing these spot checks. So even though you may have read that in local print media and heard it on local radio stations or news,
Or the ubiquitous social media
oh
posts.
gosh, our favorite, Facebook, it does not mean that those rules are not being enforced. And really what it comes down to is for the safety and the sake of our businesses, and that's what we're here for.
And by those other agencies you're talking about, it could be New York State Department of State, it could be New York State Ag and Markets,
New York State Department of Health.
the New York State Department of Health. There are all these businesses out there that have those inspections or are licensed by those state agencies. And certainly we don't want to put our business, our individual businesses in jeopardy of being shut down again.
And we're not trying to say, Ray, that we are COVID experts or public health experts, and we're not advocating that people either comply or not comply. We're asking people to keep in mind that for many of our business owners, this is their livelihood, and they're trying to, be successful in their businesses. And you can help them by wearing a mask or complying with the mandate at the very least. Whether you believe that it's,
Immaterial.
Yeah, it is immaterial. Whether you believe that masks work or not, please wear one and patron our businesses, support our local economy.
Exactly. And if the business owner asks you to wear a mask, do so. And do so out of courtesy to that business owner.
Right.
And let's not get into a debate as to whether the masks have any efficiency, any effectiveness, or anything like that. That's, like I said, that's really not, unfortunately, that's really not germane to this conversation. Lillian, as we look at, well, I don't think we're ever going to really get away from the topic of COVID-19 today, but one of the other implications, one of the other side effects that we've had is the availability of workforce and our unemployment numbers here in Delaware County.
Huge problem.
There are, I don't think I've ever, in the 35 plus years that we've lived here, I don't think I've ever seen so many help wanted signs in so many places. And it seems that everyone is looking for staff right now. We have, as of most recent Department of Labor statistics that are available, that's through the end of November, we saw an unemployment rate in Delaware County of 3.9%. That was not a typo, 3.9%. Now, a million years ago, when I took some economics classes as an undergrad, I was probably one of the few things that stayed with me was 5% at the time was considered full employment. Well, we're a full point under that. So we see a slight diminishment in the numbers of available workers. We have an incredibly low unemployment number. That just means people who are actively unemployed and seeking employment and are receiving unemployment insurance. And yet we have all these help wanted signs around. 5 years ago, you would have looked at these combinations and say, this just doesn't make sense.
So one of the subjects that we do tackle at the Delaware County Chamber are workforce development issues, and this is certainly one. It's not just specific to COVID, but there have been impacts from COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Ray, I want to give a shout out to a couple of newspaper reporters that you have been interviewed by. Alicia Corba, working for The Reporter out in Delhi. did a really interesting article that I would encourage everybody to check out, where she examined some of the reasons for the lack of workforce in Delaware County. And one of those reasons that were cited in the article was the lack of childcare or affordable childcare.
Yeah.
And one of the larger numbers of unemployed was women leaving the workforce. And she details in her article some of the reasons for that. And let's just see if I can tell you the January 5th edition of the Reporter. So check that out. But
Yeah,
one of the things, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One of the things that the county is aware of this, so our local government is aware of this. And one of the things that the county is doing under the leadership of Tina Millay, who is the supervisor in Delaware County, and the American Rescue Funds committee, who is chaired by Hamden Supervisor Wayne Marshfield.
Yeah.
That committee has allocated a portion of the county's American Rescue Funds to a train to work program.
Yeah, and essentially an on-the-job training program as a way for some incentive to bring people back into the workforce and train while on the job, and the business is compensated in part for part of that salary.
And I think that's maybe up to $5,000, but there's plenty of information out there that's being administered by the Delaware County Department of Economic Development.
Yep, it's a new program, one that if you're looking to hire is certainly well worth taking a look at. One of the caveats to that is that you need to get in contact with them and sign up and get all that approved before you hire somebody.
So that telephone number is area code 607, get your pen out, 607-832-5312. And you can speak to someone at Economic Development and they can give you the process for applying for those funds.
Yeah, and that's, that can be part of that solution, but like you said, Lillian, it's access to childcare, and again, as let's face it. I don't mean to sound sexist, but in most families and a lot of families, the responsibility, the role of child rearing goes to the woman in that relationship, and with schools being virtual and then not virtual, and it's very difficult to decide to maintain a outside the home work position because we let's face it, we really do use our schools in large part as a child care solution.
And to that end, our friends over at Delaware Opportunities in Hamden, Executive Director Shelley Bartow, they have a wonderful program there to help people find affordable licensed daycare providers. And they also have a program that will offer a subsidy or pay for part of those childcare costs in order to help people get back to work.
Yeah, really, that's a really great point. That's a really great point. As we continue to look at things in a little broader scale, things that are affecting businesses here in across New York State, the last thing I want to talk about as we looking at those larger issues is this overtime on the Farm Labor Board.
Before we go there, Ray, there's one more thing I wanted to bring up locally that is pertinent to what we're doing at the Chamber. One of the other reasons that we at the Chamber have found is that people are citing a lack of reliable transportation to and from work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the Chamber is cognizant of that, and now is an opportunity, Ray, for you to tell everybody what the chamber has been doing to address that need.
Well, let's talk about transportation. Delaware County is one of the few counties in New York State without any type of public transit system. And that creates huge barriers for employment and sometimes just for living here in the county. Several months ago, or a few months ago, the chamber received a small grant from the folks at the Rural Health Network of South Central New York and the Get There program, mobility management program, to take a look at that. Last time this was tackled here in Delaware County was back in 2011. Quite a hefty report that came up, that came out of that effort back in 2011, and really outlined what a public transportation system would look like here in the county. And it was, I'm not sure if the report was ever formally approved or adopted by the County Board of Supervisors. One thing that's very clear is that none of the recommendations that were in there were ever adopted, were never moved forward. So no dollars were put forward in any type of public transportation system.
And I think the mindset at that time, though I was not associated with the chamber at that time, was who is going to pay for such a massive undertaking? And traditional mass transit, as we would see in metro or urban areas, simply would not be a cost-effective endeavor here in Delaware County.
True.
However, you and I, and part of our transportation committee that is studying the issue and updating that transportation plan, are now looking at ways to introduce a micro transit plan that would work in Delaware County.
And something that could be on demand, that would be application based and
like Uber or Lyft.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, certainly the idea of 20, 30, 40, 50 passenger buses running around the highways of Delaware County, running up and down Route 30 out here in the eastern part of the county, makes no economic sense whatsoever. We got lots of folks who do some portions of transportation, be it the Office for the Aging, be it Delaware Opportunities, be it DelArc, or Veterans Affairs and
Department
others.
of Social Services.
Department of Social Services. But that's for their clients, and that doesn't work for the general population here in the county. So yes, we're looking, one of the things that our group is looking at right now is how do we use the technology that's now available that people weren't even dreaming of back in 2011, and adapting that to work in a rural, sparsely populated area here in the Catskill Mountains.
Well, one of the ways that we're approaching this differently now is we are not solely relying on our government officials. This is what the chamber is working on, is crafting a public-private partnership.
Yeah, that's, I think, part of that goal. And the folks who are on that committee represent some of our larger employers. They represent many of our human service agencies. County government is part of that conversation, but we're looking to take this in a very different. We're using a very different approach than has been used in the past. Really, something that's being led and driven by the public sector, and looking at even how this could be something that would involve the private transportation companies. So this is all very, very preliminary at this point. The group has met. The group has formally met once. There's been lots of emails, lots of conversations that have been flying around to put together this update. This is something that will need to go through the county board and something that will need to go to New York State Department for Transportation. But they're all involved in this process. So hopefully over the next several months, we'll have some more things to talk about here on this program regarding transportation, and hopefully even by the end of this calendar year, maybe we can even pilot a couple ideas and see what might just work.
So stay tuned, because the chamber is listening. We've heard you, we've heard our businesses, we've heard our residents. One last thing on this topic, Ray, we do work with Get There through Mobility Management.
Yep.
And they do have transportation available for for the workforce, so they can offer rides to work. That information is contained in our digital newsletter, the Chamber's digital newsletter that is emailed out every Monday morning. There is contact information there. I encourage you to check that newsletter out if you're not a member and not already receiving that newsletter. Give our office a call or email us and we'll get you signed up.
And we also post that on our Facebook channel every Monday morning as well, so folks can read it that way. Well, and before we talk about farm labor, let's talk about the weather, because that's a topic we all are interested in, especially this time of year. For the remainder of the afternoon, we got a slight chance of some snow showers, but it's going to be mostly cloudy for the remainder of the afternoon today. If you missed our high this morning of 30 degrees, well, you missed it. Temperatures are falling for the remainder of the day to about 20 degrees. Overnight tonight, we got mostly clear skies. We got a high tonight, or I should say a low tonight, down to about -7. And the wind is going to pick up. We got a wind chill advisory in place starting tonight through tomorrow afternoon. So be careful, bundle up as you go outside. Tomorrow's going to be a beautiful day, at least maybe as you're sitting inside looking out the window, it's going to look like it's a beautiful day. It's going to be sunny, but we got a high tomorrow only in the single digits. Maybe we'll see as high as 8 or 10 tomorrow for a high. Wind chill values are going to be about -20. So again, bundle up, make sure you cover up before you go out tomorrow. For Saturday night, mostly clear skies with lows going down to, again, about -6. Sunday, another beautiful day. Sunny skies, highs on Sunday going up to the mid-20s. And then, as they say, the main event starts. Snow coming in on Sunday night, overnight into Monday. And on Monday, on Martin Luther King Day, if you're not off, you may want to reconsider that. Snow in the forecast for Monday, mostly during the morning. And Lillian, what did you say as far as accumulations are concerned?
We're looking at 8 to 12 inches between Sunday and Monday. And I, for one, am really looking forward to it. I love the snow.
Woo woo! Well, a little belated Christmas gift for the folks at Plattekill and Bel Air ski centers. They've been out there making snow like crazy over the last over the last few weeks, but there's nothing like the natural stuff. So,
and don't forget our snowmobilers, Ray, of which I am one. I cannot wait for these trails to be open to snowmobilers.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, you commented on the way here today from Delhi about the lack of snow on the ground.
It looks more like April than January.
Yeah, the snow certainly where we drove through, we're driving through valleys here. was pretty spotty at best. So that's not good for snowmobilers. But our snowmobile clubs are out there doing the happy dance right now for a big snowfall on Sunday into Monday. They'll get out there, I'm sure, next weekend, and groom those trails and open those up for everyone to go out and enjoy on those snowmobiles.
Let's talk about the farm labor bill.
Let's talk about the farm labor bill. Just a little background on that. A couple of years ago, I guess it was back in 19. Boy, that seems like a long time ago. Back in 2019, the state legislature approved and the governor signed a bill establishing a overtime wage and overtime rate and overtime limit thresholds on farms here in New York State. And after much discussion and debate and public hearings, at which you and I attended one, it was set initially at 60 hours. We opposed that at the time, saying that it really didn't take into account the unique variations, if you will, of work in an agricultural environment.
And explain that just a little bit, Ray. So,
well, you know, when we get to harvest time, harvest needs to be done.
Right.
And
you're depending on sunlight, you're depending on, or
On
daylight,
weather.
on weather. And, you know, some days, and our friends in Delaware County know this well, if you're taking in hay, you can be out there from sunup to sundown. And so that could be a 13 or 14-hour day.
very easily.
And the next day it rains for 2 days, and
you're behind.
Right. So there are a lot of factors that were not taken into consideration when this legislation was passed.
So when that legislation was passed, it also created a farm labor board that's made up of the representative from the New York State Farm Bureau, the commissioner of New York State Commissioner of Labor is on that as well, and a union representative, someone from out in Buffalo. And they've been meeting more recently. They've had some public hearings recently talking about whether or not to reduce that threshold from 60 hours per week down to 40 hours per week. And we'll see. They expect to have some decision sometime later this month, maybe as soon as Tuesday. We'll see. One of our local assembly representatives, Chris Tague, has been very vocal in his opposition. He's a former dairy farmer, so certainly well understands agriculture and agricultural concerns. And Chris has been very vocal about in his opposition to further to reducing that threshold.
In addition to that, Ray, and you're going to notice now on your Zoom recording that Zoom kicked me off the call.
I saw that.
But our friends over at Farm Bureau, both Delaware County Farm Bureau and the New York State Farm Bureau,
Yep.
and our good friend Dwayne Martin, who recently left his position as president of Delaware County Farm Bureau and now is a state representative for Farm Bureau.
Right.
He has released a list of priorities for the state, which the county echoes, and they do also oppose the threshold change. I would like to just give you some stats on this. I pulled up an article knowing that we were going to talk about this. So Dwayne reports that 2/3 of state dairy farms indicated that they would either move out of state or leave farming. 50%.
Wait.
Yeah.
2/3.
2/3. Dairy farmers are reporting this.
Incredible.
72% of farm workers and managers said that they would leave the state. What are my other stats here? 50% of New York fruit and vegetable growers indicated they would leave the industry, and 70% of foreign guest farm workers would not return to New York. We do
Because they can make money elsewhere.
That's right. So the hearings are scheduled for January 18th and 20th, and you are able to have public input here. There are public hearings. Again, that information is contained at the Delaware County Farm Bureau, how to log into that information or into that Zoom call. These hearings are being held virtually due to COVID. And again, that information, our good friends over at the Reporter, they've covered this this topic quite well and in depth, so you can get the information there as well.
And if there's any hint, last week was the governor's State of the State address, and one of the measures that she is going to put forward to the legislature is offering a tax credit for any overtime that agricultural producers will pay. So maybe that's something of a bit of a foretelling as to where that farm labor board may come down on their decision.
So those figures shake out as the agricultural workforce retention tax credit. And so they're looking to double that from $600 to $1,200 per worker. And there are refunds available, et cetera. So it does, it looks like our governor has signaled what her intent is there. And then the offsets that she's offering.
And we are in budget season, we are in budget time at the state legislature. That's certainly one of the things that we continue to watch, looking at what those proposals might be, how that's going to impact businesses. Lillian, one thing that I do want to mention as we can wrap up talking about more of those state issues is redistricting. Last year, or 2 years ago now, back in 2020, was the census year, which means that in the aftermath of that, New York State's required to come up with new Assembly, Senate, and congressional district lines.
So the lines need to be withdrawn, and the legislature could not agree.
Well, let's back up a little bit.
Yes.
It was first the New York State a few years ago through a revision to the state constitution, something that you all have approved, created the redistricting commission that was supposed to be a nonpartisan, independent organization. They could not agree, and they forwarded two sets of maps, very different maps, at least as it impacts Delaware County, to the state legislature, and essentially told the state legislature, we can't decide, you decide. And earlier this week, the state legislature said, no, that's your job. So they sent the maps back to the commission with the task of coming up with a single recommendation for maps.
And the due date for that resubmission is January 25th.
Yeah, but constitutionally, I guess they have until the end of February to do that. But as you can well imagine, that redistricting commission is under intense pressure from the state legislature, or essentially any elected official from New York State. This is further compounded by a couple years ago, I guess it was now, the legislature and the then governor signed the bill to change the dates for that petitions and ballots need to be set. So instead of ballots being set in June and July and August, ballots for the most part now are set in March and April. So all those folks who are currently sitting in our state assembly, who are sitting in our state senate.
And let's just tell our listeners who those representatives are in Delaware County. And I think I got the assembly. Let me see if I get everybody right.
All right, go ahead.
So
here's a test, folks.
This is a test. I feel like I'm back in high school. So on the assembly side, we have Assemblyman Joe Angelino, who is in the southern portion of the county. We
Correct.
have Assemblyman Brian Miller, who is a good friend to the chamber. We have Assemblyman Chris Tague, also a favorite here at the chamber. And who am I forgetting?
That's it.
That's
Those
it.
are the
Okay,
three.
I
You got it.
passed. I get a gold star.
So,
and our
then the
senators.
state senate.
Oh, that's on me too. Okay, this is. I feel like I'm under the spotlight. Let me give it a go.
Do you want it to be? Okay.
My senator is Mike Martucci, who also has 6 different towns here. Senates. We have Fred, am I going to say his name right?
Probably not.
Akshar. I got it. Okay. So actually Fred is transitioning out, right? He's running for
He's going to be running for Browne County Sheriff.
Right.
So
he's looking to leave, but the seat that he currently holds is up for redistricting.
That's over in the western part of the county.
And so that's, I believe, Hancock and
One
Deposit.
more.
Okay, senators. Oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Help me out, Ray.
Pete Oberacher.
Oh, how could I forget Pete?
I don't know.
You know, he's also a farmer. You know, and so that's
Absolutely.
how Pete is a freshman, right?
This is his first. He's in his first term.
Yeah, and so
so all those folks, all those, they're all men. So all those guys are anxiously right now waiting to see what their district is going to, where is their district going to be?
What are you hearing, Ray? Are you hearing anything?
Looking at like I said, the maps right now are all over the place, both on the assembly and the Senate side, and frankly, even on the congressional side, it looks like in the 2 that I've seen, it looks like Delaware County remains. Well,
part of the 19th?
Well, one is certainly in the 19th, and the other one I think may push us into the 20th.
So for our listeners, Ray, Congressman Antonio Delgado represents all of Delaware County.
Correct. And that's in New York, and that's New York 19, and New York 20 is Representative Claudia Tenney. So, it's really all over the place right now, and obviously those folks who are current office holders aren't able to even start really thinking much about getting petitions out there and the like, because they don't know what their district is going to be like.
Not entirely true. I did see Mike Martucci, who is my senator, did announce his bid for re-election. So,
well, but again, Mike doesn't know what towns necessarily.
Right. So he is moving forward regardless. But one of the reasons, Ray, that I just wanted to be clear about why this redistricting is happening is because of the population decline.
Absolutely.
And the outward migration of residents from New York State. We are now, our census reports, the latest census reports, that our population is just under 45,000 people in Delaware County.
Correct. That's
whether that number is correct or not, who knows? Were we properly counted? I'm not sure, but that's what the number is, and that is contributing to the redistricting.
Yeah, and that's about an 8% decline from the 2010 census. But as you said, the census was conducted in the midst of a pandemic when we had a lot of folks who were taking advantage of or using their part-time homes, and others who just plain relocated into this area. So we have 10 more years before we really find out what our real population might just look like. But we're looking at, we're following that redistricting battle right now because it's going to impact who our representatives are. And as we continue to advocate for local businesses at the state level and the federal level, we need to know, obviously, to whom to speak. We got a few minutes. I want to talk about at least one local issue that really came to the forefront in 2021, but hopefully we're going to see some decision here in 2022, and that's an effort on the part of the City of New York through the Department of Environmental Protection to essentially expand its land acquisition program to acquire parcels that include some streamside properties. As it currently stands, through the memorandum of agreement and the different documents that are associated with this whole issue, the City of New York is not able to solicit parcels or acquire parcels of less than 10 acres. This would remove that restriction and include lots of parcels that are along stream sides, and would also remove that prohibition of properties within the different hamlet extension designations. The upside of this, what the result of something like this would be, if it were approved, is to continue to take developable land, out of private hands, out of the possibility of development here in the Catskills, and again, particularly here in Delaware County. The Delaware County Board of Supervisors has passed a resolution opposing this that has moved to the Coalition of Watershed Towns. They should be meeting this month if they have not already met.
And who are our representatives in Delaware County on the Coalition of Watershed Towns that people should contact?
Well, we have three. Bud Gladstone, who is the town supervisor over in Andes, is one of the Delaware County representatives. Carl Patrick Davis, who is the town supervisor in Middletown, is representative on the Coalition of Watershed Towns, and Tom Hilson, who's a member of the board of the town council in Bovina, make up the three members. And unfortunately, the attendance record of those folks has not always been stellar. And it's important that we encourage as individuals to attend, because even though that person may not be your town supervisor, if you're within the watershed, they are your representatives to that Coalition of Watershed Towns. And it's important that we get at least the backing of the coalition on this matter to try to put an end to this idea.
And just because Delaware County says we don't want it does not mean that that's going to happen. I mean, there's a process involved. And right now, the state has a say over whether they will allow the city to proceed with this acquisition program. And if we were doing a cheers and jeers section, Delaware County electeds made the list on both sides, cheers and jeers. So now we give them a cheers, right? So Shelley Bennett Johnson, did I say that right, Shelley?
Johnson Bennett.
Johnson Bennett.
Who's the director of Delaware County Planning.
She has been along with our watershed affairs director, Nick Carbone, thank you. They have been.
Now you folks, you see my role at the chamber too, is to keep Lillian on the straight and narrow.
With names. What a top-notch team we have there at the county, Ray. I mean,
I have
passion. To give them such praise for their advocacy.
Yeah, a lot of passion, but certainly very knowledgeable about this. Probably more knowledgeable than any two people anywhere about what's really happening within the New York City watershed.
And I think not just the county government, but all town and village governments are also unified in their desire to put an end to any more land acquisition in Delaware County. Stay tuned. This may be a negotiating point in the new MOA and FAD that's coming up in 2022,
That's the filtration
23.
avoidance
Yes.
determination.
Oh, sorry,
And
right.
that's some of the, again, some of those documents that make up that regulatory environment in which that we all live. And yeah, that's coming up next year in 23. I think those negotiations start. And yeah,
And
this may be a negotiating tool.
And the chamber has been, you know, an important piece of this puzzle, Ray.
Well, let's go back to, let's provide a little history. There aren't very many what I call veterans of the water wars of the 1990s that are still engaged in this process. Jim Thompson, who's the chairman of the Delaware County Industrial Development Agency, is certainly one of those people, and I'm one of the few others that are still active, who are, like I said, veterans of those water wars. When the city of New York promulgated released its first draft regulations back in September of 1990, no one really was paying attention to it. One of my predecessors in this position as the president of the Delaware County Chamber, McMahon, was one of the people who really realized the impact and the implications of what those regulations were going to look like. And Jim Thompson, fortunately, was then chair of the board for the chamber, and it was in large part those two people who got the public started banging a big drum and started organizing and putting together public meetings about this topic. So talking about the watershed, talking about some of these issues, talking about how we advocate for business and for our communities is not something new at the Delaware County Chamber. And I think we have worked to continue that type of tradition.
And the chamber remains involved in that conversation.
You bet. Lillian, I can't believe the hour is already gone. Time for us to go. Folks, stay tuned. Catskills Cafe is coming up. At least I hope so. In just a few minutes. So stay tuned for that. I'll be back. Who knows? Maybe Lillian too.
I hope so.
In a couple weeks with a new edition of Catskills Commerce. See y'all then.
See ya. Oh, this thing was poking into my head. And I'm